in our offense.
You tell the tackle to take the defensive end if he's over him. If he's not, we drive down on the first man who is inside. Fullback, we tell him to take the first man outside the offensive tackle.
No one shows. He goes right by this and steals inside.
If the YN has the linebacker taken out, he cuts inside. If the YN has the linebacker in, he comes all the way around. If you look at this play, what we're trying to get is a seal here and a seal here, and try to run this play in the alley.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome into Packers Total Access. My name is Clayton. You can check us out on Packernet.com. You can find me on Twitter at Packers_access. If you'd like to text the show, you can send a message to 865-658-5824. I'm joined alongside Jacob from the Packernet Fantasy Podcast, and we're going to just kind of reach out to the listeners today. And we sent a tweet out earlier, and just the Packers traveled today, obviously headed into Cincinnati for the first preseason game. So I thought, there's not a whole lot of news out there. Why don't we put a filler out there on Twitter, kind of let the listeners control the show today, all right? So the tweet I put out simply said, Packers fans, we need your help. For the live stream tonight, what is your expectation for the 2023 Green Bay Packers? And what one question do you have? And I got to be real, Jacob, everything flooded. I was going, this might not have been a good idea, because I know I'm going to leave somebody out. Obviously, we can't read them all. I got a ton of messages, text messages on our text line from it. We got messages on Twitter. But we're going to do our best, guys, to kind of cover. This is a good way to keep our finger on the pulse of the fans, right, Jacob?
Yeah, I agree. And you can tell we already got like a bunch of people were knocking on the door trying to get into this stream here. We already got Brad, Mikey, Eric, Zane. What's up, Zane? So, guys, that's pretty cool. Thanks for joining us really quickly here. Yeah, we're on one of those weird off days. I'm so excited, and now I've already been spoiled on having Packers content to talk about once we went through that drought. So now today's a travel day, if I'm not mistaken. I did look at a couple videos. Oh, Janelle's here. Hi, Janelle. Hi there.
Hi.
I don't know if you saw, but at the end of the stream last time, Janelle snuck in a little comment. She's like, I was here or something like that.
Yeah,
I was quiet
she was
today.
watching the whole time, right?
Hey, there's John and there's Brad again. All right, cool. So, yeah, we got this going.
Awesome.
We can talk about it, whatever you want to start this thing off. But I have a couple. It was really like I think it was like a 3-minute. Mike Hebring, let's go. There was a 3-minute video that Packers, on their social media, their YouTube account shared. And usually I don't get anything out of those. I mean, there's just nothing. Right. It's just loud music talking over whatever message they want to send. This one randomly, they did really good. And I shouldn't say that they did really good. It did really well. It's just the fact that I got a lot out of it. I got like a half a page of notes off of a 3-minute video where half of it was music and clips. But if you want to get into that, we can, but it kind of ties into a few of the topics that you want to talk about, I think, today. So awesome. Maybe we can pump the brakes and I can pepper it in. What's really cool. I mean, dude, check this out. Elevated Shine's back. Chet Wenzel. What's up?
Dude, so, people are awesome, man. Dude, I literally, we're sitting here, me and Jacob are chatting. We're trying to get ready, for the show. My phone blows up and I'm getting a text message from Joe on the text line like, hey, dude, it's my first PTA live and you're 10 minutes late. What the heck? So I love it, dude. I absolutely love it. So
the Vikings, Clayton had a veterinarian emergency, so he was driving 140 to try to get here. And
there it is. Y'all. We had a 6-month-old 90-pound German Shepherd puppy that decided he was going to chew up a remote control and basically drink the battery acid out of the battery. So I've got, if my phone rings, you know what's going on. We're going to the emergency vet. But right now he's looking at me like, why are you making a big deal out of this? We're good. Everything's fine. So anyway, let's do this, guys. We're going to come back to the chat, I promise, okay? We definitely want to follow up with these tweets that we got, so let's just get right into it. I broke it down into 3 categories based off the Twitter responses and text messages we got, okay? And again, that question basically asked them, what are your expectations for this season, okay? And the first one that came in, I would just kind of, Jacob, I would put it under the defensive tab, right? Goose responded to the tweet and said to start putting it all together on offense. It may be bumpy at the start, but consistent progress is a must. Defense consistently a top 10 defense or better all year. Andy Monday said, I expect the defense to lead in a much stronger way on the field and win us a few games to take pressure off of Jordan Love. What offensive personnel formations will we use more this season that we didn't use as much last year? We'll get back to that latter part. And then we got Dakota with the tweet that said, question, how much more aggressive does our defense need to be to set the tone and take some shade off of Love to allow him to grow? You're seeing the theme here, right? Andy A. Pack on Twitter said, expectation, the team will have absolutely zero quit in them. They will rally around each other and surprise the NFC North by winning the division. Side note, we will have a dominant D-line. Question, which offensive rookie will have the most impact by the end of the year? So we'll get back to that. So defense, the big thing that popped up here, Jacob, was defense, right? And let's just kind of get into it, man. What are we to expect with this defense this year, right? And I think it's pretty safe to say this defense or this team is starting to adopt this new identity as a defensive-minded team, right? A team that's going to lead with defense. You know, you've got a young quarterback, you've got young wide receivers. I think we got the cheapest wide receiver room in the entire National Football League. Not that they're not talented, not that they don't have the ability to overachieve and all those things. But, you know, the big thing is, can we be a top 10 defense? You know, I was talking last night, Jacob, about watching the Patriots game and hearing Tony Romo just rant and rave over this defense and talking about they were one of, if not the best defense in the league there in week 3. Just going, this defense is so fast. They're so dominant. Now, keep in mind, Rashawn Gary was still on the field, right? And things were looking up for this defense. I think people forget that. And then you fast forward through the worst part of the season, you get to the last 5 games. What did they do, Jake? They turned it around, man. The defense finished the season strong. Now, we couldn't say the same for the offense, right? They sputtered down the stretch. But I think this is the team's new identity. You know, when you talk about players that we've got on this roster, people that are proven, you got Jair Alexander, you got Rashawn Gary, you got Kenny Clark, you got Devondre Campbell, a healthy Devondre Campbell. You got Rasul Douglas, who Andy Herman said is having his best camp yet. We talked about that yesterday. Bill Huber actually talked about it on Twitter as well, and Andy quote tweeted it, just pointing out that Bill Huber was just talking about how impressed he was with Rasul Douglas, basically saying you watch Rasul Douglas on the practice field and even on the game on Sunday, and you go, how in the hell was he on a practice squad? Like, that makes no sense. He's really, really just maximized his opportunity. And another thing, too, that I want to point out, Jacob, Michael Lombardi, I mentioned this the other day, he has Quay Walker listed as a red chip linebacker player this year. He's got blue chips, the upper echelon, and then that second tier is red chip. He's got Quay in that category. He said, man, I watched the tape and I see all the talent and ability in the world. You just got to be able to maximize that talent and ability. And I think 1 year of experience alongside not having to wear that green dot now and having Devondre Campbell in his hip pocket all year long would be absolutely huge for Quay Walker. I just don't want him to lose that mean streak. I'm not saying I want him putting, trainers in figure 4 leg locks and stuff on the field. All right. I'm not saying that at all. I don't want to see no cross-faced chicken wings out there. I'm just simply saying, go out there and play mean on Sunday, man. Don't lose that aggressiveness, because I'm telling you, when Quay gets to the ball, he gets there angry, and I'm all about it. But how do you feel about the defense, man? Talk to me.
Yeah, and there's a lot to dive into after that. That's you got me all jacked up now. So what I want to pick apart first is, as we're listening to those tweets, I highlighted defense on my notes as I'm listening to you, and then I underlined it. So yeah, that's what it's about. I mean, everybody that's aware of what we need to be successful, I believe, and I mean, it starts with Jordan Love pretty much, but on the baseline of that, it starts with a really strong defense. If we don't have a strong defense, Jordan Love doesn't have any sort of, we're throwing him to the fire, we're throwing him to the wolves, unless we give him a really proper defense. Like you said, top 10, I would have to think, to make sure that he's comfortable, that he has the ability to really learn and progress. And another thing I want to get into, real quick, for the defense. Gary, today, he did an interview, and he said he was just really excited to go and play against another team, because they're just so sick of hitting each other. They can only do so much against each other and against their own guys, right? And I appreciate that. Please, Gary, don't start. And Gary's now just started to practice. Obviously, he's not going to be a part of these joint practices. I would bet my life on that.
Keep him out of the way, man.
yeah. But he just talked about the fact that he's excited to travel with the guys because it's going to start building that camaraderie. Matt LaFleur talked about it in an interview as well, saying that this is another process of the offseason, something that he wants to really instill. And he didn't say this out loud, but what I'm reading between the lines. So this is the first time we've ever traveled for one of these joint practices. First time ever.
I didn't know
so
that.
If you think about why would that be the first time ever? I'm going to guess that maybe your MVP reigning quarterback that really is on eggshells, that hates to practice in the first place. You think that he wants to practice and then go travel to do it? And again, I'm not throwing shade. I'm not trying to bring that up. I'm just saying
facts are the facts, man.
This is a whole new wrinkle. You asked what the identity of the team would be, and that's another thing we can talk about, is that this team is hungry. They don't care that they have to travel to go do a practice. They're excited to go do it so they can go hit somebody. You know what I mean? And that's something that mentality we haven't had lately. Like I talked about, the old regime, they weren't willing to necessarily even practice, let alone travel. So think about the vibe that has to be. I remember when anybody that's played sports, if you were like a junior, sophomore, even a freshman, and you traveled on the bus with a senior, they dictated everything and anything you did, said, or eaten, anything. Those guys, like, you looked up to him because they were the seniority, and that's what it was. You followed their complete line of actions, respect, the way that you carried yourself. So I have to believe that for the last decade plus, especially the last 5 years, while Rodgers has kind of been this to the type of guy that was like, I don't really want to, I don't want to have fun. I just want people to come in and do their job. From now on, all of a sudden, it seems like we have new leaders on the defense. We have Jair, we have Rasul, we have Kenny, we got Quay, we have Devondre, we have all these kind of guys, Preston, dudes that are just actual veterans, the bigger veterans than anybody on the offensive side of the ball. They actually now, like you said, the defense has 8, I believe it's 8 first-round picks.
Yeah, I think so.
Acting like it. Like, we have a lot to throw around in this league, and it looks like that we're shutting down our own offense, and you can read that one of two ways. Either the offense isn't that great, or our defense is really good and our offense is pretty decent because they've still done some decent things. So what's really exciting to me is to go to Cincinnati. It's Friday night, right?
Yeah.
11th. Let's see what we look like on both sides of the ball. And granted, I don't know what they're going to do. If they're going to put Love in, they better put that offensive line in, because otherwise that's just stupid. I mean, I don't even want to get into it. But that being said, the defense, man, I'm excited. I really do think that it could be, and we say this every year, and every year we get disappointed. But like you said, the way they ended the year last year, the veterans we have on this team, the way that they've been carrying themselves, the way that they haven't been capped by somebody else's leadership, meaning that, I'm sorry to say, but Rodgers dictated the whole mentality, the whole feng shui, the whole vibe of that locker room went through Aaron Rodgers. So I have to believe now this is a team full of hungry, young, talented, just cool dudes. Like it's insane, man.
Yeah.
The oldest wide receiver on our team, the veteran wide receiver, is Samori Toure.
It's crazy, man. It's crazy. And that's what makes this season so much fun, man. So much fun. Before we get to the next topic, let's get caught up in the chat here real quick. Just want to say thanks to everybody hopping in. Like you said, Janelle, John, everybody. Brad said, I expect us to be more competitive in every game. Lots of promise going into the following year. Mike in the chat, appreciate you dropping by, buddy. Elevated Shine. I just need the season to start before I drive my vehicle off a cliff. I've never related to a comment more in my life, man. Yep. We're trying not to drive our wagon off the cliff down here in Tennessee. I would put it that way. What's up, boys? What's up, Chet? How you doing, man? Chet's such a cool name, too, Chet. Let's see here. Dave in the chat says, looks like they finally decided DeGuara is a fullback, and I expect a lot of mesh and 12 personnel. I think there will be some surprises in Matt's bag this year, though. I completely agree. I think they're going to pull out all the stops, and it's going to be a blast to watch. Garrett in the chat said, who would you choose to come off the team bus in Cincinnati to be the intimidating? I love these kind of things, man. Pretty Boy Van Ness, Wyatt, or Slayton? I don't know, man. You say Pretty Boy Van Ness, we fixed that, dude. I don't think we have a Pretty Boy Van Ness anymore. There you go. Right? That was Ryan Schlip's personal request there. He said that I'm not going to let him live that down this year. It ain't going to happen, Jake. Every time I see Van Ness, I'm going to go, you got to be scarred up or something. Got to be. Who would be yours before we get into the next topic? And we're going to have to go quick. Who would be your intimidating guy you would want to come off the bus?
Quay Walker coming out with his face. Like, have you ever looked at
Quay Walker?
Quay Walker, dude, he looks like Debo. You ever seen him?
Yeah, he really does.
If he gives you the mad face, I would, bro.
Yeah.
No way.
For me,
Be like, give me your lunch money. I'd be like, and just
for
hand it
me,
over.
it would be Caleb Jones, and I just tell Caleb Jones, "Hey, listen, dude,
Be like,
don't even
sir.
don't even blink, hold your breath the whole time, and make eye contact with everybody. Just don't even appear as if you're not even breathing." Caleb Jones, God, that dude is such
Curl
a
up on the ball and play dead.
yeah, exactly. Cheesehead Murph said, "Go Pack, go! What's happening, fellas?"
She said, Murph.
Dropping by, man. Garrett, my expectations are continuing from last season. Top 10 defense, major impacts on the game with more pressure on the line and more tackles for loss with better penetration. Completely agree with that. Elevated Shine. If Jordan Love balls out like I believe he will, I will be insufferable on Twitter/X. You and me both, man. I'll just put it this way. I've typed in a lot of hashtag remember this tweets. I promise you that. So all I got to do is go to my Twitter and search remember this tweet. And all that crap that those guys talked in Chicago is going to be sitting right there. Now, I'm going to be real. I may not get to go to it, but if I do, it's on. It is absolutely on. Elevated Shine. Okay, that was the last one. Zane says, I watched a podcast yesterday. They said that the Packers and the Bears are going to fight for third place in the division. They have the Vikings be in first place and the Lions second place. I hope not people belittling us, all right? Man, I'm not going to sit here and BS anybody. I could see the division going any direction. It's going to come down to how well Jordan Love plays. It really is. And it's not all on Jordan Love's shoulders. But Jordan Love has got to perform. We're going to talk offense here in just a second for sure. But I understand exactly the frustration there for sure, Zane. Let's see, Garrett. Tackles for loss, forced fumbles, maximum pass breakups. Dude, throw in some turnover differential too there, man. All right, Mike says, I don't expect a lot of wins. However, that does not mean that they can't win a ton of games. They can. It really comes down to two things. How consistent is Love, and will Joe Barry just stay out of the way? Brett in the chat says, finally made it up for a live. Let's go, baby. I appreciate you dropping in, Brett. Eric in the chat, if this defense can play the run as good as they play the pass, we're golden. And that's a fact. And that's the thing, too. That's what's so give and take, Eric, is a lot of these NFL defenses, they've got to the point where they're willing to give up the run. Hey, look, we're just not giving up that explosive play, period. So, it's kind of give and take there for sure. All right, guys, we're going to get back to the chat in a minute. I just didn't want those to sit there too long. Let's get on to the next topic. The next set of tweets that we got in, Jacob, I would label it as offensive rookies, okay? Andy Monday said, what offensive personnel / formations will we use more this season that we didn't use much last year? And then Andy A. Pack said, expectation, of course, he talked about, winning the division. He said, question, which offensive rookie will have the most impact by the end of the year? And this kind of popped up in my mind, Jake. I'm going, you know what? If we had to say who would be the front runner, the best chance on the Green Bay Packers roster to win Offensive Rookie of the Year, who would it be? And Andy Monday kind of hit on something that really triggered this in my mind when he was talking about personnel and formation. He asked about that. I think that you're going to see exactly what one of the listeners was saying in the chat just a second ago. You're going to see a lot more 21 personnel with DeGuara playing fullback. If he's healthy, let's hope he's healthy, right? And the one thing you got to take into consideration, though, is Matt LaFleur is very much like Sean McVay. Sean McVay went from a 21 set to an 11 personnel in L.A. because he looked at Cooper Kupp on the bench. You heard this in the play callers. He said, I seen Cooper Kupp on the bench. I was like, what the hell am I doing? Like, I need to get my best 11 out there. So what it's really going to come down to, in my opinion, it's going to come down to Jaden Reed and Luke Musgrave. Which one proves to be more valuable, right? And it triggered a lot of thoughts in my mind. First of all, can Jaden Reed beat out Torrey for that number 3 receiver? I feel really, really confident he will. I do. I think he's shown enough. There was somebody that sent a tweet. They shared it with me. I can't remember who it was in a DM. And it was somebody that has, really close ties to the Packers, said that within the building, the source said that they're getting strong Greg Jennings vibes from Jaden Reed. You know how Greg Jennings came in and he just kind of popped. It was like he belonged right off the bat, right? And some people love Greg Jennings, some people hate him. I wish he would keep his mouth shut more, but you can't deny what he did, even from an early stage. So if Jaden Reed can come out and do that, then I think he can obviously pass up Torrey on the depth chart. And the official depth charts came out today. Obviously, you got to take it with a grain of salt. You know, we're going to find out week 1. Nobody knows until then. The Packers sure ain't going to come out and go, hey, guys, here's our best 11, right? They're not going to do it. Musgrave, he seems to have won that number 1 tight end spot, right? So Jayden Reed, Luke Musgrave, they're my 2 front runners. If I had to pick 2 and say, hey, these could be offensive rookies of the year. Now, what does that mean being the number 1 tight end? You know, if that's true, then he can win, you know, that rookie of the year, not just rookie of the year, but he can be a dominant force in this offense if indeed he is the true number 1, right? One formation that comes to mind, Jacob, when we're talking about, okay, how can you get these guys on the field to maximize it, right? Because if you're the majority of the time in 11 personnel, then that means you got to take you'll have Jayden Reed on the field and Luke Musgrave on the field at the same time. But if you're playing 12 like people are talking about, then what does that mean? If you're playing 12 personnel, that means Jayden Reed has to come off the field. So I think it's going to come down to, you know, with getting back to the original question, which offensive rookie, you know, is going to have more of an impact. It's going to come down to those 2 guys. I know they play different positions, and there's going to be a lot of rotations. I completely understand that. But it's really going to come down to if Matt LaFleur wants to get his best 11 on the field, which one comes out of camp better, Luke Musgrave or Jayden Reed? And that's a tough one to me. Now, back to Andy Monday's question, I'm going to turn it over to you, Jacob. He asked about what formation will we see, right? I think you got a good chance to see a lot of 12 personnel. And I want you to keep this in mind. We ran what we called X-Nasty Bunch last year, okay? And essentially what it is you've got a bunch formation, and then you got a nub tied in. So imagine a cluster of 3 wide receivers in a bunch formation, right? Like in a triangle pattern. And then you got an attached tight end over here. And when we refer to it as the nub tight end, he's the only only eligible receiver on that side of the ball, okay? That was a bunch nasty X, right? Is what they called it. Imagine this, Jacob. You've got Tucker Kraft attached, right, on that nub side. And then you've got Luke Musgrave in a receiver spot, maybe that F position in the cluster, in the bunch. Now you've got your 12 personnel, you know. I could see them doing something like that. So, Andy, to answer your question, I would look for that. I would look for them to see them trying to get 2 tight ends on the field. Now, it might not be Tucker Kraft. It might be Josiah DeGuara. That could totally be the case. You might see a little Tyler Davis in that nub position. But I think they're going to get real creative with Luke Musgrave, and you're going to create mismatch city. When you put Luke Musgrave on the field and you send out a 12 personnel, that opposing defense now has a decision to make. Are we sending out our base defense or our nickel defense? And early they may send out the base. And when they send out the base, guess what? If they're playing man coverage or they're playing some kind of man principles within a zone defense, then you're going to get Luke Musgrave matched up on a linebacker. That's going to happen, right? And all it takes is 1 or 2 times down the seam to bust that base wide open. And now all of a sudden they'll start treating him like a wide receiver. Then guess what happens? They go to their nickel set. You're in the 12. If they feel confident enough that Luke Musgrave can block, now you run the ball down their freaking throat. But again, I think it's going to come down to Jayden Reed and Luke Musgrave. Which one's more valuable? That will determine whether we go 12, 11, or 12 personnel. So what do you think, Jacob?
Yeah, man. Well, first thing I can say is when we talked about that topic, I thought, well, let's look back at the recent years, you know, and see what's happened as of late. So as a tight end versus wide receiver, I can pretty much guarantee you, unless Luke Musgrave has a freak season, he's not going to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. Because looking back until I figured I'd go back to 1996, it was a good year. I like that year. Offensive Rookie of the Year since then, it's a good year. We had 6 wide receivers since then win Offensive Rookie of the Year. Other than that, it's basically nothing but nothing but running backs and quarterbacks. So when you think about that, I started thinking, well, who would he have to compete with, even like the best tight end rookie seasons of the last that basically amount of time? And it's, again, Kyle Pitts, Evan Ingram, and Jeremy Shockey. Those are the only guys that have even, I think it's cracked, 800 yards receiving or 600 yards receiving with a certain amount of touchdowns and maybe 50-plus catches. It's really hard to become a tight end in this league and really produce on that level. But that being said, I really didn't know if Musgrave was going to become our starting tight end. I thought he may be one of those guys we pepper in slowly, and then eventually at the end of the year, he's our number one. I really do think he is the number one starting tight end day one, with DeGuara more of that peppered in type person that they're using him as that actual H-back, using him in weird blocking schemes and weird run plays and maybe some diversional type stuff. But I have to really think now that the offense is going to be trying to do a lot more. And I think they have more confidence in Watson than people are thinking, and that they have more confidence in Dobbs. In that same little clip I was talking to you about, the Green Bay Packer one, Watson or LaFleur was quoted on saying that Watson was more confident this year and that he was one of the most intelligent players that he's ever been around, that he's ever coached. And he said that he can literally just grab him from whatever, he can just grab him and throw him into a Z and say, these are the receivers, these are the concepts, these are the routes I need you to do. And he says he picks it up immediately, just immediately, to the point where he plug and play. That's my receiver for the next game kind of thing. And then when they interviewed Watson, they said, what are you trying to help everybody along? Are you working on your own kind of craft? What are you doing? And he's like, well, I'm trying to help everybody. I'm trying to take everything I learned last year and apply it to them, because we're only as strong together as our weakest link. And that to me shows that this guy has taken on a leadership role. He's taken on the fact that he's a second-year receiver. That's a massive opportunity for a big jump statistically, fantasy football wise, just NFL wise, in general, team wise. It's massive, because if you look at that again, he's a baby still, and he's becoming a leader of the babies. It's like that. What's that? It's Lord of the Flies. That's what's going on over there. So I'm just excited, man. This team has got a lot of potential, and they're so young, they're so hungry, they're so talented. I don't think they know enough to be scared or to be intimidated. They think that they've got the world by the you-know-what right now. And if we happen to pop into Cincinnati and actually throw those dudes around just a little bit, and Love has a little bit of – that's confidence, that's momentum, that's building that team camaraderie that LaFleur talked about. But more importantly, for this young team, because for whatever reason, our last old regime, they didn't know how to travel. They didn't know how to go across the country or even do away games and not either get in trouble or show up without even putting their cleats on, because they didn't know how to frickin' – I don't know what the problem was. These guys are excited. They're excited to travel. So let's go. It's a perfect win-win situation right now. They want to play. They want to practice. Let's get them all of the practice and the experience they can before we even hit week one, without going into preseason too. That's great.
Absolutely, man. Very well said. Very well said. Let's get back to the chat here real quick before we get to the next topic. Let's see here. David in the chat says, excited to watch this young, fast team grow together. Go Pack, go. Zane in the chat, don't forget to hit the like button, Packer Nation. Appreciate that, Zane. Yeah, and guys, if you're watching this for the first time and you're going, hey, I don't know, these guys seem a little weird, but I might tune in next time. Hit subscribe. You ain't got to turn the notifications on. Just hit that sub button for us. It helps the channel. And then if you don't like it a week later, you can ditch us, right? As Pat McAfee always says, right? What is it he says? He used to say on the Open, if you like this, be a friend, tell a friend. If you didn't, just pretend like this didn't happen. Right? So there you go. Okay. Seth in the chat says, really promising rookies like Lucas Van Ness, Brooks, Valentine, and Wooden on D should help bolster the D as well. Man, I'm excited to watch Valentine Friday night, man. That's who I'm going to be locked in on, my Kentucky boy there, man. I'm really, really excited to see him. And we've heard so much about Carl Brooks. I think you're spot on there, Seth, for sure. Brett in the chat says, was in Michigan this weekend and put down bets on them to win the division, have a winning record, and a couple other things. So I guess my expectations are moderately high. I think they win 10-ish. They seem to have a pretty good ball club, man. If you're talking about Detroit, I'm assuming you are. Are you talking about – who do you think he's talking about there, Jacob?
I honestly don't know.
I don't know. I'm one that if he is talking about the Lions, I'm one that I think Detroit does have a solid team. I'm not one that's going to sit here and hate just because they're a division right now. Do I want to see them fall flat on their face? I want to see them stub their toe before they fall flat on their face. All right.
I think he maybe means that he's in Michigan so he can place a bet
on the Packers.
He can't, yeah. And from where he's at, that's maybe what I'm hoping. I'm hoping that.
Me too. We don't want to kick you out. No, I'm just joking, man. Everybody's welcome here. My win total is, like I've said before, between 6 and 10. And I know that's kind of broad, but when I look at the schedule and I look how this roster is developed, I'm going. I would not be surprised if they only win 6 games. I wouldn't be surprised if they win 10 and make the playoffs. Right? I mean, I could see it both ways. So Arshower says Slayton putting a body on you has got to be a long, long night. Slayton putting a body on you has got to be a long, long night. You know what that is?
She said.
There it is. Right on time.
Thank you. All that weight right on top.
Dave in the chat says, glad we agree, Clayton, LOL. John says the defense will have a better safety play this season. Dude, I'm going to tell you something, John. People will hear that and they go, whatever, their safeties suck. We cannot play worse than we did last year at safety. I'm sorry. It's going to be impossible. I mean, we did go out and sign the one guy that was graded lower than Darnell Savage, but I'm just saying, I think it's only going to go up. I really do. The safety play last year was absolutely horrendous. Maki in the chat says Caleb Jones should volunteer to hand out lunch at the shared practice and just stare each Bengal down without saying anything. That would be, yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that. Justin, who's better, Trey Lance or Jordan Love?
Jeez.
Come on now, man. Who's better, Trey Lance?
Come on, man.
Have you seen Trey Lance lately? Hey, listen, you know me. I feel like people should get a fair shake. But when we see footage of Jordan Love, we see good throws and bad throws. I've not seen a good throw from Trey Lance. I haven't. I just haven't. I mean, it's bad, man. I mean, they're thank God they took Brock Purdy with Mr. Irrelevant there, right? Because if they didn't have Brock Purdy and they were forcing Trey Lance into the lineup, good luck. I mean, what happened to Trey Lance, Jacob?
I just think that to be honest, this is the worst case scenario for the Packers. They got really hyped on a guy that had some Patrick Mahomes-ish type talent that they thought maybe was the key. They threw an early draft pick on him, and he ended up being somebody that's not that great. Now, if you look at the opposite of that, they kind of drafted him, threw him right to the Wolves, said, here, be really, really good. But they also, like you said, had at the time that they have Garoppolo, and they also had, like you said, Purdy as a backup. And I really doubt that they thought Purdy was going to go in there and really play the way he did. But at this point, I mean, I think the Green Bay Packers, we have so much more confidence that we should instill in our quarterback than anybody that's looking at a 49ers situation right now. I mean, Our guy sat behind, like everybody talks about, one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. He's definitely clearly picked up his traits and his tendencies, his footwork, his release, all that kind of stuff. If you watch any of that, you understand that. And now you're looking at him year 3. Maybe that's God's blessing that he didn't get thrown to the wolves like Trey Lance did, because you need sometimes, if you're that much of a raw, and that was the definition of a raw signing that maybe we can draft and develop. Like that's clearly what we've done. We're not saying it's a finished product yet, and maybe it'll completely burn and disintegrate, but at least at this point, it looks like we're on the right trajectory, I would say.
Yeah, I agree. We got Brett in the chat says, I think now that 81 is officially a fullback, I think we'll see a lot more of that Kyle Juszczyk role. That is one thing. If they don't do it this year, Brett, they're not going to do it, right? And I'm with you. I'm leaning into that 21. I think we're going to see more 21. And we actually seen a significant amount of 21 last year. We stayed in 11 the majority of the time and played more 12 than 21. But when we played 21, it's kind of, the numbers are kind of skewed, Jacob, because technically 21 would be A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones on the field. So when we ran the pony package, it technically showed up as 21 personnel in the data, but we know A.J. Dillon wasn't playing fullback, right? What they would typically do is come out in that double sidecar pony package. Then they would flex Aaron Jones out wide and then hand the ball off to A.J. Dillon. That's not the San Francisco style 21 personnel, right? So that stuff gets a little bit cloudy, but I'm with you, Brett. I know exactly what you're saying. And if he's going to play the Kyle Juszczyk role, that means he needs to get the football. That means they need to keep the defense honest with those fullback dives. They need to keep the defense honest with fullback screens, all those things, right? That's what makes an offense or a defense, a little more wary to be aggressive against an offense that's multifaceted like that. Dave in the chat says, do you think Barry will actually play 5-man fronts this year? We have the personnel to do it. That could be dangerous. He did it last year. Dave, if you go back and watch it, man, I was surprised. I went back and when I watched those last 5 games, I'm like, man, we're showing a lot of jam fronts. And it really kind of caught me off guard. Now, I do think that they started the year doing that. And then the middle of the year, they kind of got away from it. Now, we're not in the meeting rooms. We don't know what happened. We don't know what they seen game plan-wise. We don't know who was banged up, and they didn't think it was a good idea to go in with a game plan and practice all week. If they're down 1 or 2 bodies on the defensive line, then it really throws a wrench into everything. Us being, the armchair quarterback coaches that we are, not knowing the whole story really does affect that, right? So we got Sergio in the chat said, hi, gentlemen. Been great having you put so many of these shows out so often. Very informative and entertaining. Go Pack, go. Hey, we appreciate it, Sergio. The goal is to go live every day, man. We want this to be kind of your go-to daily podcast, daily YouTube show. The reason I named it Total Access, Packers Total Access, is, NFL Total Access. What comes on at 7 o'clock on NFL Network? You get kind of the rundown, the daily news, if you will, around the NFL. I want this to be that for the Green Bay Packers, at least for our corner of the fans, right? I understand this isn't going to be for everybody. What you're not going to get on this show is shock factor. You're not going to get stupid comments that we don't actually believe just to get clicks. It ain't going to happen. We want to bring you the information. We want to bring it in real time. We want to try to, and I emphasize try to, bring you educated opinions on topics. But we'll be the first to say, we don't know everything. And if we realize we don't know something, we're going to find out together. We're going to figure out the answer together. That's what I always tell people. I get plenty of texts and they go, hey, Clayton, what about this? What about that? And my response, if I don't know the answer, is, Bub, I don't know, but we're going to find the answer right now and we'll go do the research and put it together. So, but we appreciate you tuning in, man. Glad you're enjoying the content. Just help us spread the word, Sergio. Let's get those subs up, man. Brad says, thumbs up, people. One is the loneliest number. I'm not sure what does that mean?
You don't know that song?
One? No. Sing it for me.
One is the loneliest number.
You voices, bro. I can't tell you.
I don't know who sings it, but I know it's on like a lot of commercials. It's usually probably for depression medicine or something.
Garrett in the chat says Reed can make impacts on offense and special teams. Devin Hester was his idol growing up in Chicago. That's good information. Didn't know that.
That's true. Yeah, he said that. Steve Smith.
If he indeed makes plays in both areas, put him at the top for the rookies, man. I did it on Chalk Talk, Garrett. I broke down his punt returns, and I was like, this boy has got a different kind of speed, man. Different kind of speed. Mike in the chat, I would rather Reed be the next Greg Jennings versus the next Randall Cobb. Mike, I want to ask you this, and I know you won't be able to answer in time, but I'm going to answer it for you. When you say I would rather Reed be the next Greg Jennings than Randall Cobb, I know exactly what you're saying. Greg Jennings could line up everywhere on the field. He could line up X. He could line up Z. He could line up slot. He could run any route. I don't want to say to perfection, but he was a great route runner, right? And he had solid hands. He's willing to go over the middle and take the hit, just like in the Super Bowl with Polamalu, just blowing him up on that touchdown down the seam. You're exactly right, man. Randall Cobb wasn't ever that receiver that could just line up. He could line up everywhere, but he wasn't as effective as he was in the slot. Greg Jennings was all over the field. I see the same thing with Jayden Reed. It's the same thing that Kansas City did with Tyreek Hill. You had that. You put him in the slot, and they played soft because they were worried about his speed. He'd catch a curl route underneath, make two guys miss, and take it to the freaking house, right? He could also line up on the boundary X and just take the top off the defense. I want to see that kind of impact with Jayden Reed. There's some people hearing that right now, and they're going, you need to calm your expectations. Okay, you live like that. I'm not going to. I'm going to think positive. I'm going to think cup half full rather than half empty. We've heard half empty the whole, what seems like the last freaking decade, and I'm tired of it.
I like Janelle's comment here. This gets me excited.
Yeah, 11 personnel with Dobbs, Watson, Reed, Musgrave, and Jones. Feel the speed. That's what I'm saying, man. You put – think about the speed there. Watson was clocked as, I think, the third fastest player last year, if I remember correct, in the entire NFL. Dobbs' speed is crazy underrated. You've seen him outrun Jair Alexander on the boundary in training camp. You've seen it last year. Remember last year, this time, Jacob, he beat Eric Stokes over the top, and Eric Stokes threw his helmet, got frustrated. Eric Stokes has crazy speed.
Yeah.
Musgrave clocked it over 20 mile an hour in the Senior Bowl. Aaron Jones, one of the best scat backs in the league. Janelle, you're spot on there. Spot on. All right, we're going to get back to the chat, gang. What we're going to do is jump into the last topic here from the Twitter question. And again, that question was just kind of talking about, hey, what's your outlook on the season? What do you expect? What are your expectations? This next one, I would kind of label it as playoffs, Jacob, right? Playoffs. What are our playoff chances, right? That's what I would kind of list this as. So when you're talking playoffs, let's go to the tweets. Here's some of the tweets that kind of sparked that for me. Carly said, expectations and hope, a season similar to Aaron Rodgers' first season with him one win. I know winning isn't a quarterback stat, but it will be reassuring that the team put it together. And she said, number one question, is it crazy to want them to try Watson as a corner and see how many pick sixes we can get? I grin at this because you and I think alike, Carly, but we're going to get butchered for it. People are going, what are you talking about putting Christian Watson on? Dude, I remember the days, Jacob. I remember the days when they would play wide receivers at corner, and it was so much fun. Watching Charles Woodson at Michigan, was absolutely awesome. New England did that several times too there in the early years of the dynasty. But Dakota also said expectation. I expect to see something similar to the 2019-2020 season in that a different offensive player will seem to be highlighted each game. We have enough varying weapons to allow us to exploit several opposing defenses. Completely agree with that. Mitchell Adams said expectations the Packers will win the division with a 10-7 record thanks to their top 10 defense, Jordan Love, and the offense's consistency. My question is, besides inexperience, what are some of the obstacles you expect this offseason, this offense to have this year? All great comments. And again, that kind of triggered the conversation, Jacob. Playoffs, man, playoffs. What are the chances of making the playoffs, and what's it going to take to make the playoffs? What's got to go right? And the two people that come to mind for me is Jordan Love and Christian Watson. I'm just being real. If you can establish that deep threat and force bracket coverage over the top, and you can force safeties to really have to cheat to Christian Watson's side of the field, everything opens up underneath. Everything. He can play everywhere. We much like what we talked about with Greg Jennings. A lot of people don't realize this. Christian Watson last year was not a one-trick pony. He played in the X. He played in the Z. He played in the slot. He played F from time to time. You've seen him on multiple jet sweeps. I think he had at least two jet sweep touchdowns. This dude can do it all. Now you've got Jayden Reed, who this past practice was actually lining up in the backfield. So now you've got two multi-trick ponies, right? Yeah. So think about that. 1 second, Christian Watson stretching the defense while you got to worry about this quick little guy in Jayden Reed running jet sweeps and orbit motion. Orbit motion, for those of you who don't know, you ever see the motion where the receiver goes behind the quarterback? They call that orbit. Think of a planet, right? Orbit motion. That's what they call that. You're going to see a lot of orbit motion with both Christian Watson and Jayden Reed. More so with Jayden Reed because you put that big frame of Christian Watson out there on the outside and knowing he can stretch the defense, it's game on. It's absolutely game on. So Christian Watson and Love, they've already got this chemistry. We've seen it last year. We've seen it in the Philly game. I mean, he literally picked right up where Aaron left off, and he didn't miss a beat. And it was like he and Christian Watson were already on the same page. Now, I think the key to making the playoffs is definitely going to be turnover differential and situational football. You guys hear me say it all the time. You probably get tired of hearing me say it, and I apologize. Middle eight and turnover. You got it, Jacob. Middle eight and turnover differential. I'm telling you, it's what's going to be huge this year. We screwed the pooch on 4 games. The Lions game, both Lions game, we screwed the pooch in the middle eight. And there was 2 other games that I watched because I made notes and was like, that's what lost us the game. Imagine if we had won the middle eight, those 4 games, and let's say that we just win 3 of those 4 games. We're in the playoffs, gang. We win the North, right? What do I mean by middle eight? It's the last 4 minutes of the first half and the first 4 minutes of the second half. It's all about momentum. It's about capitalizing, maximizing, scoring right before halftime, and then coming out of the gate and either shutting them down or you scoring in the first 4 minutes of the second half. It really dictates the flow of the game. And then, of course, turnover differential, man. How many times do you give the ball away as opposed to how many times you take the ball away? When you go back to 2010 in that Super Bowl season, we had takeaways galore. It's going to be absolutely huge. It's going to be key. So turnover differential, situational football, middle eight, that type of thing. Here's the other thing, Jacob. I'm turning it over to you, dude. Jordan Love's legs are underrated. Now, I'm not saying they're pretty legs. All right, don't get me wrong here. Okay, don't be a weirdo out there. This dude, people don't know how quick he is, and he ran virtually the same 40 as Aaron Rodgers coming out of college. Now, some of you guys are going, well, Aaron wasn't that fast. Go back and watch Aaron's first 5 years.
Pretty quick.
That dude was breaking off 40 and 50-yard runs. And why was he breaking them off? As soon as they realized this number 12, man, he holds the ball kind of funny, but he's got a freaking cannon. Like he can push the ball down the field. And they start to kind of back off a little bit, and they start playing, here's the key, a little 2-man under. They start playing that cover 5 2-man under, and they turn their back to the quarterback. And I'm telling you, if he looks up and there's a rushing lane, you're going to see Jordan Love run with the football. I don't know where he's getting drafted fantasy-wise, Jacob, but if you want to mention it here in a minute, it's totally cool. But I imagine he might be a bit of a sleeper when it comes to a quarterback that might rack up some fantasy points just because of his legs. Keep that in mind. So that's the big thing. The defenses are going to have to account for his legs, no doubt about it. Jacob, what do you think, man? Playoff run, what would it take to make the playoffs this year? What do you see having to go right? And really more specifically, Do you think I'm on base there with Jordan Love and Christian Watson?
Yeah, I do. I do think that it's a bit underrated, the connection between Dobbs and and Love as well, because they actually predate this season. They've done some off chemistry stuff. I think they share the same agent. I think they do a lot of that kind of stuff where they've gotten a little more. I'm hoping a little more chemistry because, like LaFleur said, Watson just seems to pick things up. It doesn't take him as long. If Dobbs maybe needs a little more of that constant connection, then great. If Reed has that newer connection, then great. When I'm looking at the what it takes to get us to the playoffs, you talked about the certain personnel. I'm thinking of just strictly the record. I'm looking back since this one has it since 2003. It's 10 wins, and granted, now the landscape of the NFL has changed since they added the game. So take that with a grain of salt. But last year, if we would have gotten that last win, we're right there, right around
Hey,
that.
remember when McCarthy used to say it, Jacob? Win 10 and you're in. He would always say that. Win 10 and you're in.
And it kind of be the equivalent of winning 10 if we didn't have the extra game, blah, blah, blah. So it's right around that ballpark. So if you reverse it, obviously in 2021, 13-4, 2020, 13-3, 2019, 13-3, going to make the playoffs there. 2018, 6-9-1, obviously missed. 2017, 7-9, missed. 2016, 10-6, we lost the conference championship. 2015, 10-6, lost divisional round. 2014, 12-4, lost conference championship. 2013, 8-7-1. Now that's the one there. We all remember that. That was a crazy, crazy year. We ended up losing the wild card round. I was just blessed to even get into that playoff right there. So that one's basically the anomaly. Year before that, 2012, 11-5, lost the divisional round. 2011, 15-1, lost divisional round. And then 2010, 10-6. We all remember what happened that year. We won the freaking Super Bowl, and like Clayton talked about, it's largely because of that middle eight, and the turnover differential was massive. Charles Woodson, a lot of those guys just freaking balling out. 2009, 11-5, lost the wild card round. 2008, 6-10, missed it. 2007, 13-3, lost the conference championship. 2006, 8-8, missed the playoffs. 2005, 4-12. Goof. That was a rough one. Missed playoffs. 2004, 10-6, lost the wild card round. 2003, 10-6, lost divisional round. So you can see a pattern there. It's right around that 10. Now it'll be 11-ish wins. So I really do think that that's the mark, and I think we can get there. It's like you said, all of these topics kind of tie into each other to see if we can make that 10 win. And if they do, if you have the change in the offensive philosophy, the team basically whole entire makeup, the whole drive of the team, if you start looking at what the rookies can do to impact this team, if you start looking at the fact that people may look at this as a rebuilding year, but I think that makes this team hungry and underdog-ish, and that they want to prove them wrong. I want them to prove them wrong.
Absolutely.
We've got guys even that we talked about with being sneaky gadget players, like obviously your Watsons and your Reeds. What about Tay Wicks? What if Bo Melton makes the team? What if some of these Bo Melton ran like a 4.3, almost like. That's
and
crazy.
Jacob, in the past, we go, yeah, but Rodgers doesn't like to throw to them. They won't go to him. Hey, this is a different era.
That's a whole different. Yeah, exactly. The defensive side of the ball, Devontae Wyatt. I think that this dude's gonna eat, dude. Because if Kenny is getting those double teams still, if we still have any sort of, I still think Levon that LVN is going to be unreal. Whether or not Gary's ready to go, and guys, Gary's practicing and he's running at an angle that looks ridiculous. Like the dude's ready to go. He's ready to go. I guarantee you, if they let him, he'd play in preseason week 1. It seems like right now he looks that ready. They're not going to let him. Please don't let him.
Can y'all tell Jacob's excited? It's football season, baby. I love it. Very well said, man. All right, dude. Awesome. Let's do this. We're at the 48-minute mark.
Jeez.
We'll go ahead and hit this chat hard, and then we'll get you guys out of here. We appreciate everybody swinging through, man. You guys have lit it up. Absolutely awesome. We got R Showers in the chat here. He says, or she says, not sure. Why wouldn't someone utilize a fullback when you can have the best one for virtually free? It seems dumb. You telling me none of the great fullbacks could cut it now? No way. We were talking about that the other day, right? With Mike Allstott. I don't care what your offense is. You put a Mike Allstott in, or an old school Jim Taylor. Could you imagine Jim Taylor in one of these? Oh my God, dude. Oh, I love it. Love it. Love it. Brad in the chat says, help these guys out, fill our Packers' hunger needs. Zane, I see that the Packers signed a running back from the Ravens. Y'all know why. I thought we already had like 5 running backs. Already hope everything is good. And I think Brett was responding to you, Zane. He said Lou Nichols got hurt. So it sounds like it's probably somebody to kind of fill a roster spot there and help fill in because they're going to need backs. They're going to need – you don't want to see Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon in the preseason, in my opinion, right? I don't think you want to see that. Zane – or let's see here. Brett says, I have to keep repeating it to myself how hard tight end is to play for a rookie because otherwise my mind gets racing too much in regards to Musgrave because my word, he is so tantalizing. Yeah, we keep hearing that you got to curb the enthusiasm on the rookie tight ends, and you guys have heard me say it. I've been guilty. But if you look at the great tight ends, they popped early. They did. Now, people go, oh, yeah, but Travis Kelce's and George Kittle's, they're not growing on trees. No, but let's don't kid ourselves into thinking everybody knew they were going to be good. They were all later picks. Right. I mean, it wasn't like these guys, went like Jeremy Shockey, number 14 overall. Right. So it's just something to think about. Drew in the chat, I'm not going to lie. I'm expecting 4 to 6 wins. I think we'll be in a lot of games that don't go our way. It'll be a big learning year for Love. Drew, I don't think that's being negative. I don't think that's unreasonable. That's possible. There was a lot of teams last year that ended up, they end up losing a lot of games by just very few points, right? And sometimes some teams, I mean, look at the Packers the year they won the Super Bowl in 2010. Jacob, there were so many injuries, dude. So many injuries that year. I remember going into like week 5 or 6, like, well, this sucks. The season's pretty much over. They ended up winning the freaking Super Bowl. And everybody forgets that. Like, it's just –
Didn't Woodson, break his collarbone, halfway through the game, too, or something?
He broke his collarbone before halftime in the Super Bowl, yeah. So we were without our best defensive player. Yeah. And on top of that, early in the season, you lose Ryan Grant, right?
That's right.
He I can't remember if he broke an ankle or whatever.
Starks. That was the whole thing of Starks. That's right.
You lose Jermichael Finley. You lost a couple of offensive linemen. It was just one thing after another. I'm going, this is freaking – we're freaking doomed, right? And then you turn around and you win the freaking Super Bowl. So, again, Drew, I don't think that's unreasonable, man. If they only won 4 games, I'd go, man, this team was worse than I thought. I'm not going to sit here and lie and pretend like, that's something I'm expecting. But again, you just never know, man. It's the National Football League, dude. Any given Sunday, anything can happen. John in the chat says, you think defenses will stack the box more this year against the Packers offense? I'll tell you this, John, I hope they do. And if they do, you tell Matt LaFleur to tell Jordan Love, when they stack that box, you go ahead and give that little check, and you send number 9 over the freaking top. And you know what? If we lose, we lose big. We ain't going to lose because we were playing scared. If they stack the box, bomb that thing. Bomb it. Gene in the chat says, love the show. Jacob, you need to look up. They want to see your beautiful face, man. Keep that chin up, all right? Let's see. Brett in the chat was talking he said he was talking about the Packers. Okay. Sometimes I'm coming in big conversation here. All right. Garrett says Bengals, Pats, and Seahawks all have respected defenses. This is a real good test for the offense to see what they can really do. Yeah, it's a good point. Now, how many starters will they play, right? Now, again, what's great about what Garrett's saying, and I'm kind of reading between the lines here, Garrett, you correct me if I'm wrong, but those joint practices, man, that hearing the updates out of the joint practices is going to be just as much, if not more important than the preseason game. Hearing how these, if we hear the updates come in and the Bengals absolutely dominate in all 3 phases of the practice, it might be a long season. But if you hear the offense struggled but the defense held their ground, or you hear the special teams showed up and the offense played well but the defense struggled, what I need to hear, Garrett, is one of those 3 facets of the game at least competed with the Bengals. The Pats, I'm not as worried about. The Seahawks were a solid team. I would put a lot of stock in the Seahawks and the Bengals and how those practices go for sure. So Pro says, during family night, the Packers ran a couple plays with Musgrave running seams, and seeing the safeties draw to him is something I'm excited about for Watson and others. Think about this, Jacob. Think about that bunch set. I wish I had a Chalk Talk geared up here. If I had something in the hopper, I'd throw it up on the screen. Imagine a bunch set, right? So you've got a diamond pattern, a half diamond pattern, right? So you got a receiver here, here, and here, right? And you run a switch concept, a switch release out of that. Imagine Musgrave. Let's say Musgrave's in the Z, right? And let's say you got Watson in the slot, right? Now imagine them running a switch release and Musgrave attacking the seam while Watson hits the sideline. How are you? You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not saying it's a slam dunk and they've got to execute. The ball's got to be delivered on time. The protection's got to hold up. There's a lot of factors that come in. But thinking about that much speed attacking deep and what it's going to do for the underneath game. And now you got Jaden Reed or imagine Tucker Kraft on a shallow cross, a little drag route coming from that nub tied in, catching it underneath with a full head of steam and running over some – oh, my God. I'm just telling you.
Dude, like I said, I'm just imagining like Tay Wicks because I'm looking at this dude and I'm starting to think, oh, maybe we got a couple of these dudes that are just like freaks, man. Like I really do think. Remember what they said that he has similar footwork to Devontae Adams. I mean, and Ryan highlighted one of the just a quick little slant route that he did, like just a one-on-one kind of thing, or like maybe just a team drill. But it looked freaky, dude. I mean, the footwork was there, the quickness. I mean, and we haven't gotten to see a lot of him because of the concussion thing he got going on there. But again, like you talked about, man, Bengals practice here. This could be some of the best intel. It's way better time spent than if we did more team drills. Let's go see who hits nets. Like, okay, that's cool. I want to talk about that again. No, I want to see what they do against people because no matter what, if they're like, hey, guys, we're going 50% today, all right? They're not going 50%. They're going like 75. And if they said we're going 75%, they're going like 92. You know what I mean? Because they hate each other. There's no they're men that have been literally training to go battle other men, and now they're like, all right, guys, go half pace. Nah, dude, it ain't gonna be like that. It's gonna be cool.
Yeah, I agree. Justin in the chat said, any guys moved at the trade deadline? I don't think so. I mean, the first thing that pops into mind is Bakhtiari, but I just don't see it. I really don't. I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to get assessment of this roster this year. And if they're borderline playoffs, what I see them doing is if Bach plays well and he stays healthy, then I see them next year looking to restructure Bach's contract. Basically saying to Bach, look, we're going to cut you loose unless we renegotiate here and do exactly what they did with Aaron Jones. You know, everybody looks like Aaron Jones took a pay cut. Aaron Jones took a pay cut, and he did. Technically, he took a pay cut. But he looked at the market and said, none of these running backs are getting paid, right? So he essentially came out with $11 million this year when there's a lot of running backs on the market that can't even sniff that, right? So it's something to take into consideration. Now, tackle is a premier position, but Bakhtiari is a little longer in the tooth, right? But to answer your question, man, I'm going to say no. They might try to go out and get somebody on the cheap, but I don't think they're looking to trade anybody. Let's see here. Another comment in the chat. Casey said, do we know how many of Myers' quote, bad snaps or fumbles were in shotgun or under center? I don't know the answer to that question. Do you, Jacob?
I don't. I just know that he was the common denominator for basically all of them. It was 3 different quarterbacks, always Myers.
And when you hear bad snap, it's very seldom that you get a bad exchange between the quarterback and the center, under center, and it not be on the quarterback. It's hard to screw that up as a center, to not just literally put the ball between your butt cheeks. That's all you're doing, bub. Just put it up there. Now with shotgun, it's different story. So if I had to guess, Casey, and I'm strictly guessing, I would say it probably came from shotgun. That would be my guess. Let's see here. Just want to make sure I'm not overlooking anything else before we wrap up, guys. Here's Zane in the chat. Do you guys think we finally break the third-round curse with Tucker Kraft? I hope he can turn it into a top tight end in this league. I know this, man. They thought pretty darn highly of him, right? When a tight end's taken that high, especially after they already took Musgrave, what it tells me is they either had a second-round grade on Tucker or they caught wind that another team had a similar grade and were looking to leap over him, right? That's kind of what I think. Showers in the chat says, yeah, what about Kraft? Very little buzz there. Yeah, but you got to think Musgrave has stolen all the number one snaps. It's going to be really hard for Tucker Kraft to come in and get those number one snaps when obviously they had a higher draft grade on Luke Musgrave, right? So there you go. Garrett, the only thing shocking is Clayton's Shepherd's bot. What do you think he means there? What's he talking about there?
Can't quite tell.
Yeah. I don't know if he's talking about my dog or my redneck underbot. Man, I got the worst underbot on the face of the earth. I'm telling you, I look like every Appalachian person you've ever seen on a PBS documentary. It's just the way it is, man. You got to lean into it, Garrett, if that is what you're talking about.
Do you like French fried taters?
Yeah. I dug me out a hole and laid down back there. All right.
Killed
Daniel
him.
in the chat. This might be for you, Jacob. You may know about this. Daniel said Musgrave's starting to get drafted on Underdog. Is that true, man? Are you seeing anything?
Well, when you say start getting drafted, people like myself, what I did in every single one of my best ball leagues, and I did like a stupid amount. I did like 30. You're not supposed to draft as early as I drafted. I just got really excited and wanted to start doing. You do so many mock drafts, and then it's not real. So when money's on the line, you really get a feeling as to see how people are drafting, So what I typically do is I do at least a $3 league because people are, if it's a $1 league, they're like, whatever, I don't care. I found that $3 to $5 people actually care. They'll stick there through the whole draft. But what I did with any best ball league, because I would only do best ball if you're going to draft early. It's smartest. It's mathematically okay. The DraftKings guy that won like the top $2 million prize last year drafted his team in late July. So don't get mad if you've already done it. Don't freak out. But what I did is I grabbed Musgrave as the last pick of every single one of my drafts, pretty much in every single one of them. Because if you can find a tight end with a tight end upside one upside at literally your last pick in the draft, it's ridiculous value. And I was going to say a ton of Musgrave and a ton of Dalton Kincaid, because they say that Dalton Kincaid, again, is the only other tight end right now, rookie tight end. He's getting slot time. He's getting X time. They're moving this guy all over the field just to kind of take away from people being able to double up on Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis. And now they've got some new running backs there. So we have a similar situation with our rookie tight ends. People are still sleeping on Kraft, but Musgrave is, again, that guy who reaches the 21 miles per hour speed. We are lining him up all over the field. You've already seen that he's not afraid to go across the middle. He's a big guy, but grab him at the last value. It's such a massive value. Tight end is either you get Travis Kelce, Mark Andrews, or tight end is just a crapshoot. If you can grab a dude that's maybe a top 10 tight end at your last pick of the draft, that could literally win you a lot of leagues. So that's all I'll say about that.
Good stuff, man. Good stuff. Travis in the chat said, LOL, literally was listening to the PFP pod that just dropped and then saw y'all live. Way to keep the content churning, boys. Yeah, we appreciate the support, man.
Thanks,
guys.
Travis.
I'm so sorry, but we're over the hour mark, and
Nice.
this thing's growing to where we can't keep up with the chat, man.
It's fun, man. We've got a lot of people coming on this.
Yeah. God, I want to read them all, gang, but we've got to wrap this thing up for podcast.
You know what? I saw this one, and I really had to. I thought this was a great. Where's Janelle's comment? She said William Henderson blocked for Edgar Bennett, Dorsey Levens, and Amon Green, who combined for 9 1,000-yard rushing seasons from 1995 to 2006. The only fullback to ever block for 3 1,000-yard rushers. That's a freaking stat, Janelle.
That is.
Nice.
Janelle's a secret weapon, dude. Absolute secret weapon. Eric said, Clayton, I'm taking your words to heart. I'm betting my kids' college fund on the middle eight. Don't let them down. No pressure, right? No pressure at all. If they screw up the middle eight this year, I'm going to disappear. I'm going to change my name and change the name of the pod. But that feels a lot like Michael's tots right there. That's what that feels like. You ain't putting that pressure on me, bro. All right, guys. I appreciate everybody in the chat. Like I said, we can't keep up with the chat. We're over an hour. Ryan's going to kill me for taking this pod too long. I want to thank everybody, man. And I can't even go back and read them all. Just please know, everyone in the chat, everyone listening, please know we appreciate your support. And I wish there was a way that we could get to more of them. But what I need to do is start giving kind of a last call at about the 50-minute mark, Jacob, and just saying, hey, guys, don't waste your time typing in the chat because we're not going to be able to get to them. That'd probably be the more respectful thing to do. But please, guys, just understand we really, really appreciate everything y'all do to support the show. Y'all have just been lighting up the subs, lighting up the podcast downloads. And if you're watching this on YouTube and you're sitting there going, I didn't know y'all had a podcast, scan the QR code in the upper left. That'll take you right to Packernet Podcast. Ryan Schlipp does amazing work. It's where you can find Jacob's Packernet Fantasy Podcast. You can find Jake Shavink's It's Always Draft Season Podcast, the whole 9 yards.
Well, so, and what they can do is if we can't get to your questions here, feel free to call into Packernet After Dark, where Ryan takes literally like it's better. You don't just have to type it. You can call in, get that inflection so people know what you're actually talking about, You
know what? You're freaking brilliant.
Code, there you go. Scan this QR code right up here in the top left, I believe, of your screen, and that'll take you to that Packernet Podcast Network. Like I said, call in Packernet After Dark. Ryan's pretty good at getting back to those, so that's another way to get your voice heard and get your comments read and all that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to I'm just going to read it off here, okay? If you got a pen, if y'all want to pause it later, whatever. here's the number you're going to call for Packernet. Jacob, you're brilliant, dude. You're brilliant. I swear. 608. All right, 608-501-0718. Again, that's 608-501-0718. Me and Jacob are a couple people that fight for more football talk on Packernet After Dark. We're going to lead. We're going to lead an all-out assault on the silliness on Packernet After Dark. Although, if you listen to Packernet After Dark, you're going to understand real quick. It's probably what makes it so special. But if you got those football questions, the things that we couldn't get to in here, man, fire away over there. Call them. And, of course, we got the Super Chat feature in here. We will always prioritize the Super Chat. Again, no pressure on anybody doing that, but just understand that is something that we can prioritize in the chat as well. I'm trying to brainstorm and come up with ways that we can make this fair for everyone and get them read. So anyway, thank you guys so much. Said we had to go and we sat here and rambled for 10 minutes, but we're going to get out of here. Thank y'all so much for making us a part of your evening. Again, hit that subscribe button. We're closing in on 1,000 subs. I know we're over 700. We're coming up on 800 next, and we want to get to 1,000 as quick as possible. So share it with your friends, all your burner accounts, all that stuff. Get on there and sub for us. We're not going to sit there and pretend like that doesn't happen, right? But appreciate everybody hanging out. Jacob, you got any parting thoughts, bub?
Guys, just if you want to join a league, we posted it officially on Twitter today. It's the 14-man PPR Superflex with 2 defensive players. It's like a really crazy fantasy football league. If you want to join, it's going to be super fun. It's $20 buy-in. We're going to be talking about it all year on the podcast. There's probably going to be another league or 2 that we already have one from last year that we kept going. Everybody came back. It's been fun. So this is a good way if you want to, again, get some interaction. We're going to be taking comments, chats, talking about our trades, talking about our lineups, talking about the stats, obviously. So if you want to go to my Twitter account or the Packernet Fantasy Twitter X account, it's pinned to the top. It's a $20 buy-in. First place wins like $180. Second place is, I don't know. You get your money back and then some if you place. I'm going to make a really stupid over-the-top trophy from Trophy Mate. So it's going to be cool, man. Check it out. It's fun.
Love it.
There's already 7 people in the 14-man league. So if you want to jump in quick because it's filling up really fast.
Good stuff. There you go, guys. Listen, this year, it's all about one thing. We want to see these rookies grow. We want to see this young team kind of grow together. We would love to see a playoff berth, but it's all about just incremental growth across the board. It's also about the Jets. 65% of those snaps, baby. We want to see 65% of those snaps. If you didn't hear me, let me hit it right here.
65%.
65%. That's what. All right. We want that, and we want the Jets to be absolute hot garbage so we get some great picks next year. Nothing against Aaron. You guys know I'm a huge Aaron Rodgers fan. I was actually going, man, I'm looking forward to rooting for Aaron. As soon as I heard that the trade details, I'm like, nope, sorry, bub. Need you to fall flat on your face. That's just the way it is. I can't remember what Tim said. I'll screw it up. He said something, green and gold till I'm dead and cold. Is that what he said?
Green and gold, dead and
So
cold.
gangster from the whitest person I've ever met in my life. I love it. Anyway, we're out of here, guys. Thank y'all so much for your time. For those of you listening on the pod, thank you for making us a part of your day. As always, let's go out and be the change we want to see in the world. Go Pack, go.
The power sweep. Actually, it's the lead play in our offense.
Tell the tackle to take the defensive end if he's over him. If he's not, you drive down the first man who is inside. Fullback, we tell him to take the first man outside the offensive tackle.
No one shows. He goes right by them and steals inside.
If the YN has the linebacker taken out, he cuts inside. If the YN has the linebacker in, he comes all the way around. If you look at this play, what we're trying to get is a seal here and a seal here and try to run this play in the alley.